You were a warrior once. You remember the weight of the axe in your hands. You remember the cold bite of Skyrim's wind against your face, the crunch of snow beneath your boots, the roar of battle and the hot spray of enemy blood. You remember victory. You remember glory. You remember the songs they sang of your deeds around the fires of your village. You were strong. You were proud. You were alive. Now you stand in darkness, your body wrapped in ancient linen, your flesh dried to leather over bones that should have turned to dust millennia ago. Your eyes, if you can call them eyes anymore, glow with pale blue light that is not your own. Your hands, skeletal and wrong, still grip a weapon you no longer remember forging. You are Draugr now, and you have been Draugr for 4,000 years. Let me take you back before the darkness, back before the endless vigil, back to who you were when you were still a man. You were born in Skyrim, in the age when dragons ruled the sky and their priests ruled the earth. The Merethic era, they would call it later, though you knew no such name. You knew only your village, your clan, your duty. You knew the feel of frozen earth beneath bare feet, the taste of mead brewed from mountain honey, the sound of your mother's voice singing the old songs. You grew strong because weakness meant death. The winters were cruel, and crueler still were the beasts that stalked the snow. Wolves and trolls and worse things, things that had no names but plenty of hunger. You learned to fight before you learned to read. You learned to kill before you learned to love. And above all, you learned to serve. The dragon priests ruled everything. They spoke for the dragons themselves, the Dova, the children of Akatosh, the winged gods who had claimed Skyrim as their domain. To defy a priest was to defy the dragons. To defy the dragons was to burn. You did not defy. No one defied. You served. His name does not matter anymore. You have forgotten it, along with so much else. But you remember his mask, gold and bronze, shaped into a face that was not quite human, not quite dragon. You remember his voice, deep and resonant, speaking words that made reality itself tremble. You remember the way he looked at you and your fellow warriors, not as men, but as tools, resources, extensions of his will. You were his Draugr before you ever died. The word meant something different then. Draugr, the living servants of a dragon priest, sworn to protect him in life and follow him into death. It was an honor, the highest honor a warrior could achieve. To be chosen as Draugr meant your name would echo through eternity. Your service would never end. You did not understand what that meant, not truly. You thought of glory, of purpose, of being remembered when lesser men were forgotten. You did not think about what eternity actually felt like. You knelt before his throne and swore the oath. You felt his magic sink into your bones, cold and ancient, binding you to him in ways that transcended flesh. You rose as his servant, proud beyond measure. Your mother wept when she heard. You thought they were tears of joy. The years of service blur together now. You remember fragments, battles against rebellious villages, expeditions into ancient ruins, standing guard while your priest performed rituals you did not understand, chanting in the dragon tongue, drawing power from sources that made your soul itch. You killed for him. You would have died for him. That was the nature of service. And then one day, you did die. Not in battle, not in glory. You died in a ritual chamber, surrounded by your brothers in arms, while your priest chanted words that turned your blood to ice. You died willingly, eagerly even. This was the final service, the transition from living Draugr to eternal Draugr. This was the gift your priest bestowed upon his most faithful. You remember the cold spreading through your limbs. You remember your heart slowing, stuttering, stopping. You remember the darkness rushing in from the edges of your vision, swallowing everything. You remember thinking, I will wake in Sovngarde. I will feast with the heroes of old. You were wrong. The first thing you felt was hunger. Not the hunger of a living body, not the grumble of an empty stomach, the craving for meat and bread. This was something else, something deeper, a void at the center of your being that demanded to be filled, that screamed for sustenance you could not name. The second thing you felt was cold. Not the cold of Skyrim's winters, which you had loved, which had made you feel alive. This was the cold of the grave. The cold of stone that has never known sunlight. The cold of flesh that no longer pumps blood, no longer generates warmth, no longer does anything but exist. The third thing you felt was awareness. You opened your eyes, your new eyes, glowing with sickly blue light, and you saw the chamber where you had died. Stone walls carved with dragon imagery, braziers that had burned out centuries ago, dust coating everything in a fine gray shroud. And bodies. Dozens of bodies, arranged on slabs, wrapped in linen, motionless. Your brothers, your fellow Draugr, sleeping their eternal sleep. You tried to speak, but your throat produced only a dry rasp, a sound like wind through dead branches. You tried to move, but your body responded slowly, reluctantly, as if it had forgotten how limbs were supposed to work. How long? The question echoed through your hollow mind. How long have I been sleeping? You did not know. You could not know. Time had become meaningless in the darkness of the tomb. But you knew one thing with absolute certainty. Your priest was near. You could feel him, like a hook embedded in your soul, pulling you toward duty. He needed you. He was calling. You rose from your slab, joints cracking, dust falling from your body in small avalanches. You took your first step as a dead thing, then another, then another. You did not walk toward the exit. There was no exit anymore. The tomb had been sealed, buried, forgotten by the living world above. You walked toward your priest's chamber, drawn by the bond that would not let you rest. You walked, and you did not stop. The tomb was vast, larger than you remembered. Corridors stretched in directions you did not recall. Chambers opened onto chambers. Stairs descended into darkness that seemed to have no bottom. Had it always been this large, or had something changed while you slept? You passed other Draugr as you walked. Some slept still, motionless on their slabs. Others wandered like you, drawn by purposes you could not see. They did not speak to you. You did not speak to them. What was there to say? The hunger gnawed at you with every step. You did not know what you hungered for, only that the emptiness was growing, spreading, consuming more of what little remained of your mind. And then you saw the first intruder, a living person, warm and bright and terrified, stumbling through the darkness with a torch that flickered against the ancient stone. You did not know how they had gotten in. You did not care. You only knew one thing: they did not belong here. Your body moved before your mind could process what was happening. Your weapon rose. Your legs carried you forward with speed you should not have possessed. Your mouth opened, and the sound that emerged was not a battle cry, but something else. A shriek, a howl, the scream of 4,000 years of hunger given voice. The intruder ran. They did not run fast enough. You do not remember killing them. You remember the moment before, and you remember the moment after, but the killing itself is a blur of motion and violence and the terrible, shameful relief of the hunger briefly receding. When awareness returned, you were standing over a body. Your weapon was wet with blood that steamed in the cold air. The torch had fallen, still burning, casting dancing shadows on the walls. You looked down at what you had done, and somewhere, in the depths of your rotted mind, something that had once been human felt horror. "This is what you are now," a voice whispered. "This is what you will always be. A guardian. A killer. A thing that exists only to destroy those who enter these halls." You wanted to weep. Your eyes produced no tears. You wanted to scream. Your throat produced only that terrible, rattling hiss. You wanted to die. Truly die. Finally die. Let whatever remained of your soul escape this prison of dead flesh and ancient magic. But you could not. The bond held you. Your priest needed you still. And so you turned away from the body, and you walked deeper into the tomb, and you waited for the next intruder. You are still waiting. 4,000 years. The number means nothing to you. How can you measure time when there is no sun, no moon, no seasons? How can you count years when every moment is identical to every other moment? The same darkness, the same cold, the same hunger, the same endless patrol through corridors you have walked 10 million times. But you know time has passed. You know because the world above has changed. The intruders tell you, though they do not mean to. Their weapons are different now. Steel instead of bronze. Shapes and styles you do not recognize. Their armor has evolved. Their clothing has changed. Their very faces seem somehow altered from the Nords you remember. And they speak of things that make no sense. Empires risen and fallen. Dragons gone from the sky. Your priests, all of them, everywhere, sealed away in tombs like this one, ruling nothing but dust and the dead. The world forgot you. The world moved on. And you remained here, in the darkness, serving a master who no longer matters to anyone but you. Your priest sleeps still. You have seen him in his inner chamber, seated on his throne, motionless as stone. His mask gleams faintly in the blue light of the braziers that never go out. His robes have rotted to threads. But his power remains. You can feel it, pulsing through the tomb like a second heartbeat, binding all of you to this place, to this purpose. Sometimes you stand before him for hours, days, you cannot tell. You stand and you stare at the face that is not a face, and you try to remember why you swore to serve. You try to remember your mother's voice. You try to remember the taste of mead. You try to remember anything that made you human once, before all of this. The memories are fading. Every year, every century, they grow dimmer, more distant, more like dreams half remembered upon waking. Soon there will be nothing left but the hunger and the duty. Soon you will forget that you were ever anything but this. And perhaps that will be a mercy. But not yet. Not quite yet. Because sometimes, in the endless darkness, you still remember. You remember sunlight. You remember laughter. You remember the feeling of warm blood in your veins, of air filling lungs that actually needed it, of a heart that beat because it wanted to, not because ancient magic commanded it. You remember being alive. And in those moments of remembering, the 4,000 years crash down upon you like an avalanche, and you understand, truly understand, what has been done to you. You were not given eternal life. You were given eternal death. You were not honored. You were cursed. Your priest did not reward you. He consumed you, used you, hollowed you out, and filled the empty space with his own will. You are not a warrior anymore. You are not even a person. You are a mechanism, a trap, a thing that kills intruders and returns to its patrol and waits for the next killing, and never, ever stops. This is eternity. This is what you swore yourself to. This is what you are. The tomb is silent now. No intruders have come in. How long? You cannot tell. The other Draugr walk their routes, or stand in their alcoves, or lie in their sarcophagi, each one as empty as you, each one as eternal. Your priest sleeps on his throne. The hunger gnaws, and you wait. You have been waiting for 4,000 years. You will wait 4,000 more. Let me tell you about the bond. You feel it always, a thread of cold fire running from your chest to somewhere deeper in the tomb, somewhere you cannot see but always know. It is not pain exactly. It is not pleasure. It is simply presence. The constant, inescapable awareness that you belong to something greater than yourself. Your priest, your master, your reason for existing. When he sleeps deeply, you can almost think your own thoughts, almost remember who you were, almost feel something other than hunger and duty. These are the moments when the horror is clearest, when the weight of 4,000 years presses hardest against what remains of your mind. But when he stirs, even slightly, even in dreams, the bond tightens. Your thoughts scatter like leaves in a storm. Your body moves without your consent, walking patrol routes you have walked 10 million times, checking corridors you have checked 10 million times, waiting for threats that may never come. You are not a person. You are an extension, a finger on a hand that belongs to someone else. And the worst part, the part that makes you want to scream, if screaming were still possible, is that you cannot even hate him for it. The bond does not allow hate. The bond does not allow anything except service. The other Draugr feel it too. You know this, though you have never spoken of it. Speaking is difficult now, words slipping away like water through skeletal fingers. But you see it in their movements, the way they pause sometimes, mid-step, as if remembering something, the way their glowing eyes dim occasionally, going distant, going inward. They were people once, warriors like you. They had names and families and dreams and fears. They swore the same oath you swore. They died the same death you died. Now they are mechanisms, like you. Hollow things walking hollow halls. Sometimes you pass close to one of them, your patrols intersecting in a corridor or a chamber. You do not speak. You do not acknowledge each other. But for a moment, just a moment, your eyes meet. Blue light looking into blue light. Emptiness recognizing emptiness. And in that moment, you see it. The flicker of awareness behind the glow. The trapped thing, the buried thing, the thing that was once a man and knows it and cannot do anything about it. They are all still in there, every single one of them, conscious, aware, remembering, suffering. You thought, perhaps, that the others had it easier, that their minds had fully gone, that they walked and killed and waited without any sense of self remaining. You thought you were unique in your torment, special in your awareness. You were wrong. There are hundreds of you in this tomb, and every single one is screaming on the inside, screaming without sound, screaming for 4,000 years. The sleep is not sleep. When you stand in your alcove, when your body goes still and your eyes dim, when the living would look at you and see only a corpse, you are not resting. You are not dreaming. You are not anywhere else. You are simply paused. Awareness continues. The darkness continues. The hunger continues. But movement stops, and time becomes even more meaningless than usual. Hours and years become identical. You stand in your alcove, and you exist, and you wait, and nothing changes except the slow accumulation of dust on your shoulders. Some of the oldest Draugr have been paused for centuries at a time. They stand in deep alcoves, in forgotten chambers, in places where no intruder has walked in 1,000 years. They are coated in gray, their features obscured, their weapons rusted to their hands. But they are aware. They have been aware every single moment, for every single year. Imagine standing in perfect stillness, unable to move, unable to sleep, unable to die, while centuries pass around you. Imagine the weight of each second, each minute, each hour, piling up like stones on your chest. Imagine knowing that it will never end, that you will stand here until the mountain itself crumbles, that even then you might continue somehow, existing in the rubble, aware and alone and eternal. This is the gift your priest gave you. This is what you begged for. The intruders come in waves, years of silence, then suddenly, living beings, warm and loud and desperate, stumbling into the tomb through passages they should not have found. Treasure hunters, scholars, adventurers seeking glory. They do not understand what they have walked into. You remember the first wave clearly, or as clearly as you remember anything now. They came with torches and iron weapons, shouting in languages you did not recognize, their voices echoing off stones that had known only silence for centuries. The bond surged. Your priest stirred in his sleep, and you, all of you, every Draugr in the tomb, woke at once. It was not a battle. Battles imply some possibility of the other side winning. The intruders died screaming. Their torches were extinguished. Their bodies were left where they fell, and within weeks they were bones, and within years they were dust. And now there is no trace of them, except the weapons you took from their corpses. You do not feel guilt about the killing. The bond does not allow guilt. But sometimes, in the quiet moments, you look at the sword one of them carried, a fine blade, better than anything your people made in your time, and you wonder who they were, what they hoped to find, whether anyone mourned them when they did not return. You will never know. They are less than memories now. They are nothing, like you. The second wave came later. Decades? Centuries? Time is difficult. They were better prepared, armored, organized, carrying lights that did not flicker. They spoke of something called the college, of research, of understanding the ancient ways. They understood nothing. Your priest was more awake for these ones. You felt his will pressing against the back of your skull, directing you, positioning you. You flanked. You ambushed. You used tactics you did not know you remembered, working in coordination with Draugr you had never fought beside in life. The scholars died slower than the treasure hunters. They had magic of their own, fire and lightning that scorched your dried flesh and shattered your brittle bones. Some of you fell, truly fell, destroyed beyond even your cursed animation. You envied them. But enough of you remained. Enough always remains. The scholars joined the treasure hunters in death, their knowledge lost, their questions unanswered. And the tomb fell silent again. The third wave was different. A single intruder. Alone. Carrying weapons that glowed with enchantments, wearing armor that seemed to drink the light. They moved through the outer chambers like a storm, cutting down Draugr with efficiency that spoke of long experience. You watched from the shadows. The bond held you back. Your priest was barely stirring, saving his strength, waiting to see if this intruder would reach the inner sanctum. They did. You followed at a distance, walking paths you knew better than your own forgotten name. You watched them bypass traps that had killed dozens. You watched them solve puzzles that had stumped scholars for generations. You watched them approach your priest's chamber with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. And then you watched your priest wake. You had not seen him move in how long? Centuries, certainly. Perhaps longer. He had been a statue on his throne, a monument to power that no longer mattered, a god ruling an empire of dust. But now he rose. His joints cracked like breaking ice. His robes, rotted to threads, fell away as he stood. His mask, that golden face you had served your whole life and death, gleamed in the blue light as he turned toward the intruder. And he spoke. The words were in the dragon tongue, the language of power, the language that shapes reality itself. You did not understand them, not fully, but you felt them. The air itself seemed to thicken, to press down, to demand obedience. The intruder staggered. Their enchanted sword wavered. For a moment, you thought they would kneel, they would serve, they would become like you. But they did not. They shouted something back, words in the same terrible language. Words that struck your priest like physical blows, making him stumble, making him falter. And then the battle began. You should have helped. Every fiber of your being screamed to rush forward, to defend your master, to fulfill the purpose you had served for 4,000 years. But the bond held you frozen. Your priest had not called you. He was fighting alone, matching shouts with shouts, Magic with magic, ancient power against something newer and stranger. The intruder won. It was not quick. It was not easy. But in the end, your priest fell. His mask clattered across the stone floor. His body crumpled like a puppet with cut strings. The power that had bound you for millennia flickered, stuttered, and nearly died. Nearly. You felt it happen, the bond loosening. The will that had controlled you for 4,000 years finally releasing its grip. For one perfect moment, you were free. Your thoughts were your own. Your body was your own. You could choose. For the first time since your death, you could actually choose what to do. And you chose to do nothing. You stood in the shadows and you watched the intruder loot your priest's body. You watched them take the mask, the staff, the artifacts that had been gathering dust for millennia. You watched them turn and walk away, back through the corridors, back toward the surface, back toward a world you had not seen in 4,000 years. You could have followed. The path was clear. Nothing held you anymore. But where would you go? What would you do? Who would you be? The moment passed. The intruder left. And slowly, terribly, you felt the bond reassert itself. Your priest was not truly dead. You understood that now. His body had been destroyed, yes. His physical form was gone. But his essence, his will, his power remained, woven into the stones of the tomb itself, binding you still, commanding you still. He would sleep again. He would rebuild his strength. And one day, centuries or millennia from now, he would rise again, perhaps in a new body, perhaps in no body at all, but he would rise, and you would be waiting. You were always waiting. The other Draugr felt it too. You saw them stirring, confused, their patrols disrupted by the momentary freedom. Some had made it halfway to the exit before the bonds snapped back into place. They stood frozen in corridors, reaching toward doors they would never open, their empty eyes fixed on freedom they would never taste. Slowly, one by one, they turned around. They walked back to their alcoves, their chambers, their eternal posts. They resumed the patrol routes they had walked for millennia. Nothing had changed. Everything had changed. But it did not matter. The tomb was still the tomb. The duty was still the duty. And you were still Draugr, now and forever, until the world itself ended. You returned to your alcove. You stood in the darkness. You felt the dust begin to settle on your shoulders once more. And you waited. The hunger gnawed. The memories faded. The blue light in your eyes dimmed to a barely visible glow. But you were still aware. You were still conscious. You were still, somewhere deep inside, the warrior who had loved mead and battle and the sound of his mother singing. You would be that warrior forever, trapped, aware, suffering. This is what eternity looks like. This is what you chose. Let me tell you what you see when you stand in your alcove. When your body is still and your eyes are dim, and the living would call you dormant, you see everything. Not with your eyes, those ruined things, glowing with borrowed light, barely functional even when you walk. You see with something else, something the bond provides, something your priest wove into you when he first claimed your soul. You see the tomb, all of it, every corridor, every chamber, every trap and treasure and secret passage. You see it from above and below and within, as if you have become part of the stone itself. You know when dust settles in the eastern passages. You know when water drips through cracks in the ceiling 3 levels down. You know when the ancient gears of the trapped doors grind against rust and time. You are the tomb. The tomb is you. There is no separation anymore. And sometimes, rarely, terrifyingly, you see beyond. There are other tombs. You did not know this for the first 1,000 years. You thought your prison was unique, isolated, a single point of darkness in a world of light. But as the centuries passed and your awareness deepened, you began to sense them. Other places like this one. Other priests sleeping on other thrones. Other Draugr walking other patrols. Hundreds of them. Scattered across Skyrim, buried beneath mountains and hills and ancient cities. Each one a mirror of yours. Each one filled with the undying servants of the dragon cult. You cannot communicate with them, not exactly, but you feel them. A vast web of suffering, stretching across the province, connecting every tomb to every other tomb through bonds of ancient magic and shared torment. Sometimes, when your priest dreams, you dream with him. And in those dreams, you walk through tombs you have never seen. You see Draugr with faces that are not your brothers. You feel the presence of priests more powerful than yours, or weaker, or stranger. You glimpse fragments of a network that spans all of Skyrim, a sleeping empire of the dead, waiting beneath the feet of the living who have forgotten they exist. The dragon cult did not die when the dragons fell. It merely went underground. It merely went to sleep. And it is still here. All of it. Waiting. The hunger has a source. You understand this now, after 4,000 years of feeling it gnaw at what remains of your soul. You are not hungry for food. Your body does not need sustenance. It is animated by magic, not biology. You are not hungry for blood, though the killing brings temporary relief. You are not hungry for warmth, though the living carry heat that calls to you like fire calls to moths. You are hungry for life itself. The magic that sustains you is parasitic. It feeds on the living energy of those around you. And when there are no living beings, it feeds on you. On your memories, on your identity, on everything that once made you a person. This is why the oldest Draugr are the emptiest. They have been consumed from the inside, their souls devoured by the very magic that keeps them moving. They walk and they kill and they wait, but there is nothing left inside them. Nothing but hunger and duty and the faintest echo of what they used to be. You are not there yet. You still remember. You still feel. You still suffer. But every year you feel a little less. Every century, a few more memories slip away. Your mother's face is gone now. Her voice remains, but fading, growing quieter with each passing decade. Soon it will be silent. Soon you will forget you ever had a mother at all. And then you will forget you ever had a name. And then you will forget you ever were anything but this. The intruders help in a terrible way. When they come, when the living walk into your tomb with their warm bodies and their beating hearts and their precious, precious life energy, the hunger focuses outward. You kill them, yes, but in the killing, you take something from them. Not their souls, those go elsewhere, to Sovngarde or Oblivion or wherever the dead are meant to go. But their vitality, their spark, the indefinable thing that separates the living from the dead. It sustains you. It pushes back the emptiness, fills the void, gives you a few more years, a few more centuries of memory and awareness. This is why you kill so eagerly. This is why your body moves with such terrible speed when an intruder appears. Not because you want to protect the tomb, not because your priest commands it, because you need them. Because without them, you will fade. You will become like the oldest ones, the empty ones, the Draugr, who have been standing in their alcoves for 3,000 years and have forgotten they were ever anything else. You kill to survive. You kill to remain yourself. You kill because the alternative is a dissolution so complete that death would be a mercy by comparison. And yet, every kill makes you more of a monster. Every life you take pushes you further from the man you used to be. Every moment of relief is paid for with another piece of your humanity. There is no escape. There is no winning. There is only the choice between slow dissolution and bloody sustenance. You have been making that choice for 4,000 years. But sometimes, very rarely, there are moments of clarity. You do not know what causes them. Perhaps the bond weakens when your priest dreams deeply. Perhaps the magic fluctuates like tides, ebbing and flowing according to patterns you cannot perceive. Perhaps it is simply random, chaos in a system designed to last forever. Whatever the cause, the moments come, and in those moments, you are yourself again. Not fully, the body is still dead, the hunger still present, the bond still pulling at your soul. But your thoughts are clear. Your memories are sharp. You can think in complete sentences, feel in complex emotions, remember in vivid detail. In those moments, you stand in your alcove and you weep without tears. You remember your village, the smell of wood smoke and cooking meat, the sound of children playing in the snow, the feel of your father's hand on your shoulder, proud and heavy and warm. You remember your first battle, the terror and exhilaration, the moment when your axe bit into enemy flesh, the roar of victory that tore itself from your throat without permission. You remember the girl you loved. Her name is gone, but her laugh remains, bright and clear as mountain water. You never told her how you felt. You were going to tell her when you returned from the priest's service. You never returned. You remember the day you swore the oath, the pride in your chest, the certainty that you were doing the right thing, the absolute conviction that service to the dragon cult was the highest possible calling. You were so young, so stupid, so completely unaware of what you were sacrificing. In those moments of clarity, you try to break free. You have tried 1,000 times, 10,000 times. You throw yourself against the bond with everything you have, every scrap of will and memory and identity that remains. You scream without sound. You fight without movement. You rage against the chains that have held you for millennia. It never works. The bond is too strong. Your priest is too powerful. And you, despite everything, despite the horror and the suffering and the desperate need to escape, you are still, on some fundamental level, loyal. You swore an oath. You meant it when you swore it. And oaths, in this world, have power. Your word binds you as surely as any magic. You cannot break free because part of you does not want to break free. Part of you still believes in service, in duty, in the honor of keeping your promises. Part of you would rather suffer forever than be an oath breaker. And so the moment passes. The clarity fades. The bond reasserts itself, and you sink back into the fog of hunger and patrol and endless, endless waiting. But you remember. Even when the clarity is gone, you remember that it happened. You remember that you are still capable of being yourself. And that memory is both a comfort and a curse. There is one Draugr in the tomb who remembers more than the others. She stands in a chamber near the priest's sanctum, alone, guarding a door that has not been opened in 3,000 years. Her armor is ancient even by your standards, bronze instead of iron, a style that predates your own service by centuries. Her weapon is a sword so corroded it would shatter if she ever tried to use it. But her eyes are different. When you pass her chamber on your patrol, you see it. The glow is the same sickly blue, but behind it, deep behind it, there is something else. Something that watches, something that thinks, something that has maintained itself, somehow, through millennia of hunger and isolation. You do not know her name, you have never spoken to her, but you feel a kinship that transcends words. She is like you, aware, suffering, remembering, and she has been remembering longer than you have been dead. Once, during a moment of clarity, you tried to reach her. You walked off your patrol route, a violation so profound that the bond screamed in protest, sending waves of cold fire through your dead nerves. You walked to her chamber. You stood before her. You opened your mouth, and with effort that nearly shattered what remained of your mind, you spoke. One word, a single word, dragged up from memories you thought were gone forever. Sister. She did not move. She did not respond. Her eyes stared straight ahead, fixed on some point in the middle distance, glowing their steady blue. But something flickered, just for a moment, a twitch at the corner of her mouth, a slight shift in the light behind her eyes. She heard you. She understood. And then the bond snapped you back to your patrol, and the clarity faded, and you could not remember why you had walked to her chamber or what you had said. But somewhere, in the depths of your fractured consciousness, a spark remained. You are not alone. There are others like you, and maybe, impossibly, desperately, against all evidence and reason, maybe that means something. The tomb is silent now. The other Draugr walk their routes or stand in their alcoves. Your priest sleeps on his throne, his essence spread through the stones, his dreams brushing against your awareness like cold wind. The hunger gnaws. The memories fade. The years pile up like dust. But you are still here, still aware, still suffering, still hoping. You do not know what you hope for. Escape is impossible. Death is impossible. Change is impossible. But hope does not require possibility. Hope is irrational. Hope is foolish. Hope is the one thing the bond cannot fully extinguish, because it is the one thing that has no logical basis. You hope because you are still, somewhere deep inside, human. And humans hope. Even when there is no reason to. Even when hoping only makes the suffering worse. Even then. And then the dragons returned. You felt it before you understood it. A tremor in the bond, a vibration in the stones, a shift in the very fabric of the magic that sustained you. Something vast had changed in the world above, something that mattered to your priest, to all the priests, to the entire sleeping network of the dragon cult. For the first time in 4,000 years, your priest's dreams turned outward, away from the tomb, away from you, toward the sky. The dragons were back. You did not see them. You have not seen the sky since the day you died. But you felt their presence through the bond, through the web that connected all the tombs, through the ancient magic that had been waiting for this moment since before you were born. The Dova had returned. The children of Akatosh, the winged gods who had ruled Skyrim in the age before ages. They were flying again, burning again, shouting in the language that shapes reality. And somewhere, somehow, you understood that everything was about to change. The intruders increased after that, more than you had ever seen, waves of them, desperate and determined, flooding into tombs across Skyrim. They were looking for something: weapons, knowledge, power, tools to fight the dragons that had suddenly reappeared in their world. They died like all the others, but there were so many of them now, so many lives to take, so much vitality to absorb. The hunger receded, your memories sharpened. For the first time in centuries, you could think clearly for days at a time, not just moments. And you thought about the dragons. You had never seen one, even in life. By the time you were born, the dragons had already retreated from the world, leaving only their priests to rule in their name. You had worshipped creatures you never met, served a cult built on legends and inherited power. Now they were real again. Now they flew above the mountains you had once called home. Now they burned villages and devoured livestock, and reminded the world why humanity had once knelt before them. Part of you, the part that still remembered the oath, the service, the honor, felt something like satisfaction. The gods had returned, the true gods. Everything your priest had worked for, everything you had died for, was finally coming to fruition. But another part of you, the part that remembered your mother's voice, your village, the girl whose laugh still echoed in your hollow skull, felt something else entirely: fear. The Dragonborn came on a day like any other. You did not know they were Dragonborn at first. They looked like any other intruder, armored, armed, moving through the outer chambers with the caution of someone who had done this before. You watched from your alcove as they triggered traps, fought through your brothers, pushed deeper and deeper into the tomb. They were skilled, more skilled than most. Their weapons cut through Draugr like scythes through wheat. Their voice, you heard it echo through the corridors, carried power that made the stones themselves vibrate. And then they reached the inner chambers. And then they faced your priest. And then they shouted. You know the dragon tongue. Not well. You were never taught it properly, only heard it from your priest's lips during rituals and punishments. But you know enough to recognize power when you hear it. The Dragonborn's shout was not like your priest's. It was rawer, wilder, less refined but somehow more potent, as if they were speaking the language for the first time and discovering its true meaning in the speaking. Your priest fell, again, as he had fallen before to other heroes in other ages. But this time was different. This time, when the Dragonborn struck the killing blow, something happened that you had never felt before. The bond did not loosen. It shattered. The thread of cold fire that had connected you to your priest for 4,000 years simply snapped. And in that moment of severance, you felt your priest truly die. Not retreat, not sleep, not rebuild. Die. His essence, scattered through the stones, collapsed inward and vanished. His dreams, which had pressed against your awareness for millennia, went silent. His power, which had sustained and imprisoned you, evaporated like morning frost. He was gone, and you were still here. The other Draugr felt it too. You heard them, actually heard them, with ears that had not processed sound properly in centuries. Moans and rasps and rattling exhalations, rising from alcoves and chambers throughout the tomb. The sound of hundreds of undead throats trying to scream. The bond was broken. The priest was dead. The purpose that had driven you for 4,000 years had simply ended. What now? You expected to die, to finally, mercifully die. With the priest gone, surely the magic would fail. Surely your animated corpse would collapse, your tormented consciousness would disperse, your suffering would end. But you did not die. You stood in your alcove and you waited for oblivion, and it did not come. The magic persisted. The hunger persisted. You persisted. The priest's death had not freed you. It had merely orphaned you. You were still Draugr, still dead, still aware. You were simply Draugr without a master. And somehow, that was worse. The tomb changed after that. Without the priest's will to organize you, the patrol routes broke down. Draugr wandered aimlessly through corridors they had walked 10 million times, no longer knowing why they walked or where they were going. Some stood still in random locations, frozen by the absence of commands. Others continued their old patterns out of habit, muscle memory, the inability to imagine anything else. You tried to leave. For the first time in 4,000 years, nothing stopped you. No bond snapped you back. No cold fire punished your disobedience. You walked toward the entrance, through corridors you knew better than your own forgotten face, toward the door that led to the surface. You reached it. A massive stone slab, sealed from the outside, carved with warnings in languages that had not been spoken in millennia. You pushed. Nothing happened. Your dead muscles, strong enough to cut through armored intruders, could not move the stone. Your body, animated by magic that had sustained you for 4,000 years, was not designed for this. You were made to guard, to kill, to wait. You were not made to escape. You pushed until your arms cracked, until your fingers splintered against the stone, until your body collapsed against the door, a broken thing, a failed thing, a thing that could not even escape properly. And then you lay there, in the darkness, and you understood. You were never going to leave. The Dragonborn did not return. Other intruders did, treasure hunters mainly, picking through the remains of a tomb that no longer defended itself properly. They took what they wanted. They killed the Draugr that got in their way. They left the rest. They left you. You had crawled back to your alcove by then, your body slowly repairing itself through magic you did not understand. You stood in the darkness, and you watched them come and go, and you did nothing. What was the point? Killing them would not bring back your priest. It would not restore the bond. It would only delay your dissolution by a few more centuries. And for what? For more waiting? For more suffering? For more endless, pointless existence? You let them pass. You let them take the treasures your brothers had died protecting. You let them desecrate the tomb you had served for 4,000 years. You did not care anymore. Time passed. How much you cannot say. The intruders stopped coming. Perhaps they had taken everything worth taking. The other Draugr settled into new patterns, or stood motionless in their alcoves, or wandered in circles through empty chambers. You stood in your alcove and you waited for nothing. The hunger still gnawed, but distantly now, like pain in a limb you no longer possessed. The memories still faded, but slowly. So slowly you could barely perceive the loss. Your mother's voice was silent now. The girl's laugh was gone. Your own name had slipped away somewhere in the last few centuries, leaving only a blank space where identity used to be. You were becoming one of the empty ones, the ancient ones, the Draugr who had forgotten they were ever anything else. And you did not fight it anymore. But even now, even at the end of everything, even as the last scraps of your humanity dissolve into the magic that animates your corpse, you remember. You remember that you were a warrior once, that you were proud and strong and alive, that you loved your mother and your village and the cold bite of Skyrim's wind against your face. You remember that you made a choice, a terrible choice, made in ignorance, made in faith, made in the absolute certainty that you were doing the right thing. You remember that choices have consequences, that some consequences last forever, that eternity is not a reward, it is a weight, crushing you slowly, grinding you down into nothing. And you remember that somewhere, in another tomb, a woman with ancient eyes heard you call her sister. That somewhere, in the vast web of the dragon cult's remains, there are others like you. Others who remember. Others who suffer. Others who hope, despite everything, despite all evidence and reason. You are not alone. You have never been alone. And somehow, in the darkness, that is enough. The tomb is silent now. The other Draugr stand in their alcoves or wander their meaningless routes. The treasures are gone. The priest is gone. The purpose is gone. But you remain. You stand in the darkness, your body still, your eyes dim, your mind fading into the slow dissolution that will eventually claim you. And you wait. Not for your priest, not for intruders, not for death or freedom or salvation. You wait because waiting is all you know how to do. Because 4,000 years of service have worn grooves into your soul that cannot be erased. Because even now, even at the end, you are still the warrior who knelt before a golden mask and swore to serve forever. You kept your oath. That has to mean something. Close your eyes now. Not your eyes, those dead things that glow with borrowed light, but the eyes of your mind, the eyes that remember sunlight. Let the darkness wrap around you like a blanket. Let the cold become familiar, almost comfortable. Let the hunger fade to a distant whisper, a memory of a memory, an echo of something that used to matter. You are Draugr. You have been Draugr for 4,000 years. You will be Draugr until the mountains crumble and the sun goes dark and Skyrim itself becomes a memory. But somewhere inside you, deep inside, buried beneath millennia of dust and darkness and despair, there is still a warrior, still a son, still a man who loved and fought and dreamed. He is quiet now. He is fading. But he is still there, and he will always be there. No matter how long the darkness lasts, no matter how heavy the silence grows, no matter how many centuries pile up like stones on his chest, he will remember. He will endure. He will wait. Sleep now. Not the false sleep of the Draugr, the terrible awareness that never ends. Real sleep. Living sleep. The kind of sleep where dreams are possible and morning always comes. You have that gift. Use it. Close your eyes. Breathe. Feel your heart beating in your chest, that miracle you take for granted, that rhythm of life that the Draugr would give anything to feel again. And when you wake, remember them. Remember the warriors who made terrible choices in ancient times. Remember the servants who kept their oaths beyond death. Remember the consciousness trapped in dead flesh, waiting in darkness, suffering in silence. Remember that eternity is real. and remember to live while you can. The Draugr are still waiting. They will always be waiting. But you can wake up. You can walk in sunlight. You can choose. Choose wisely.